Roll Tide, everybody, and welcome to Cover Crimson, covercrimson.com. Clint Lamb, Mick Gillispie hanging out with you live on a Monday. And the agenda today is to hang out with you guys. Like, subscribe, thumbs up, though. I got to tell you that. And ask you to hang out with us. Let's talk. What's it going to take to get Bama back to the Natty? We'll discuss that right after this. All right, Clint Lamb, Mick Gillispie with you on Cover Crimson. A little night. This is like the happy hour show.
Are you partaking?
Yeah, I got me a little beer right here. I felt like I'm on a diet right now. I mean, I haven't really had a whole lot of beers this month, but I came out today and just saw, you know what? It was time for just at least one. Just one ice cold beer. As we talk to you. So I lost Clint there for a second. But guys, what I was thinking is this. Oh, there's Clint. He's coming. He's back again. What is it? First off, I'm down here. It's Senior Bowl's going on. They're sizing everybody up. Like what your hand size and all that stuff. How high can you jump? They'll play a game on Saturday. But what's it going to take for Bama to get back into the Natty? Easy question for you, Clint.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? And after I answer it, just make me head coach. You can go ahead and make me GM too, because if I had the exact answers to that, then I feel like we'd be in a much different position. We'd be sipping some beverages, but we'd be in a much more secure financial place doing it.
Right.
Man, do you feel like Alabama was really off this year? I mean, that's kind of the question where you got to start with it, right?
Yeah.
Because if you feel like that there was a lot wrong and a lot needed to be fixed, then, I mean, how confident would you really be? But if you feel like, okay, it's one or two things, you get one or two things really corrected. Obviously, there's going to be more than that. But, one or two main things, and it's like, hey, you could be right back on track.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how do you feel about it?
Well, I mean, I felt really good until the Oklahoma game, and then after
what was it about the Oklahoma game? What was the most concerning part of that game to you? And I'm not saying that it's just one thing, but like,
I felt like they didn't have any effort. Like I felt like the effort wasn't there, and I mean, like it felt like the effort wasn't there. Saban had a few games like that, like when the team was out of the playoff hunt, like they had the Utah game. There was an Oklahoma game like that. There were occasionally, but not many. We had two of those this year we lost to three unranked teams. And I kind of gave them a pass on the Vanderbilt game, but the last two were just awful. So, as you guys, and get in the comments section, guys, I mean, jump in on this. This is kind of one of those shows where everybody, if you got a point to make it. But I guess that's the effort part, or is that preparation? And I guess that, for me, it's like I'm still trying to figure out exactly what that means.
South Carolina ended up being better than we realized at the time, but it feels like a lot of those games where they were respectable opponents. They're teams that can beat you. Vanderbilt ended up being better than anyone anticipated. Oklahoma was, they were kind of actually around where I thought. I thought 6-6 or 7-5 would kind of be that sweet spot for them, and I thought a lot would depend on that Auburn game. But it felt like that these teams that were good enough to beat you, but that you should have beat handedly, that was where the struggle, in my opinion, happened.
Right.
Would you agree?
Yeah. And hey, Michael, man, good to see you, brother.
Yeah, great to see you.
Roll Tide, roll Tide, roll Tide. Yeah. No, I mean, like the Oklahoma game was so bad. And then you kind of you were saying beforehand, you were like, look, man, this guy's known for stealing signs. And whether he stole signs or figured out that Milroe keeps his feet together for handoffs and separated for passes, whatever it was. They seemed to know every play before Alabama ran it. And then they go back to being crappy again after we played them. So that was a little bit concerning. And then, they looked really good against Auburn, I thought, and then the Michigan game, back to the way they played against Oklahoma.
Yeah. And that's kind of, if there was anything to me that was like a long-term potential concern, it would be the fact that was a common enough theme. You've got to get that fixed above all else, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Granted, I think there's things within the roster, within the makeup of the offense, within the makeup of the defense, that's going to, obviously help them. But man, it feels like that would be my biggest concern is everything was on the line,
right?
But it felt like it was in the bag. But even when it felt like it was in the bag under Nick Saban, he did not share that approach with you. Like from a media standpoint, we'd be talking about, they're, 29-point favorites this weekend against Arkansas. And it's like, it's not really a matter of how much Alabama's going to, or excuse me, if Alabama's going to win, it's how much are they going to win by.
Right. And he got pissed off about that. And
yeah.
Why now. We know why.
And that was, if heaven forbid, if you asked him a question to his face about it. But even when he would kind of catch wind of that kind of stuff and everybody was saying the right things in the media when they were asking him questions, if he would have heard you and I on here talking and we're buying into that, pretty heavy. And that's kind of a common theme amongst the media and amongst the fans and stuff.
Yeah.
Like that bothered him to his core. It was one of probably his biggest pet peeves. I'm not saying I'm not saying that Kalen DeBoer and company don't have that, but for me, that would be one of the things. Just like you've got to get that corrected because is it our fault? Absolutely, it's always been our fault. There's a reason that Nick Saban wasn't the biggest fan of the media, even though he's now a part of the media, and I do find it funny.
I think that's funny.
Because I think he's understanding how difficult it is to do these jobs and not be predictive. And not, talking hypotheticals and not, and do all those things because, fans, how do you get on here and talk about the game without just spitting, hey, here's the numbers. You got to analyze it. You got to look at, hey, I've watched this team. I've seen this, whatever. It's not easy to do as far as providing the entertainment factor leading up to some of these games, as I think Nick Saban, realized.
Yep. Hey guys, great to see Jersey Dolphins in the house, man. He's been with us, Clint, from over in the Bama Insider days. He says both college and pro ball are in the Wild West of sorts, NIL and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, that's definitely true. Julia, great to see you. Roll Tide, everyone there too. Yeah, that's a whole, and I think it's easy to say that's why Nick Saban got out of it. Obviously, he's older too, but the NIL. I keep thinking about Miss Terry. Miss Terry said that, the guys used to show up and they bring them to the house and they tell the parents how they were going to take care of their kid and they were going to teach them values and then make sure they got to class. And he was like, now they get there and all they care about's when are they getting their NIL checks? When are they getting the money? And she's like, why are we doing this? And for his type of leadership and what he brings to the table, it obviously it wasn't something that was working anymore. At least he didn't feel like it, and I thought he did a good job his last year. Look at it now. He was in the playoff and lost to the team that won it. If Milroe would have played a little better in that game, if the offensive line would have blocked a little bit better, they probably won a championship that year. But the NIL part of this is the fact that they don't have any rules on the NIL, to me, is what bothers me the most. I don't know how you can even have, like an organized sports league like this with this much money, and the team that goes out and spends the most is going to win. If you have the best roster in your Ohio State, you're going to win. I said Ohio State was going to win from day one, and I'm not a genius, Clint. I never said Ohio State wasn't going to win. I said they were going to win from day one. And it's easy because they had the best roster. They went out and bought they bought our best player.
Well, yeah.
And they did that to Ole Miss. And who knows who else?
Well, I definitely think that there needs to be some guardrails and quickly too, man. And I feel like we talk about this all the time. I feel like we're just rehashing the same concerns and having the same conversations, but we're right around the corner, man, from some of these academic institutions making decisions on players where like you can transfer mid-year. And if you're 6 or 7 games into the season, if you want to transfer and start playing for another program or another team,
Like right
you're
in the middle of the season?
yeah. I'm saying like it feels like we're just because what is the NCAA going to do? They're not doing anything about anything else. Really, the
That's
only
how they
thing
do
that's
it in winter ball and baseball. Like a guy
yeah,
will be on one team one day and he's on the Tigers one day, and then the next day he's on somebody else, you know?
that's exactly right. And it's like, I mean, I know that seems just absolutely absurd, but I mean, if you'd asked me 5 years ago, hey, what do you think about players getting paid? Hey, I've always said I'm for it, man. Let them make money off of their name, image, and likeness.
Yeah. You mean like
And
real name, image, and likeness?
exactly. I mean, we're not trying to. I mean, even 5 years ago, I probably wouldn't have said that they needed to get paid by the university or anything. I kind of at one point in time, I probably agreed that the money that they were making through scholarships and all the food stipends and all those things. But I always thought that on top of that, it's like if I'm in college and I want to go get a job to help my family or help myself be able to buy things that I enjoy, have some experiences with some friends, do all those things. I've always been able to do that. I mean,
Yeah.
anybody has, but athletes weren't able to because they didn't have the time. So, but what you can do is show up for a few hours for a commercial, or simply go post something on social media, use your influence,
Right.
say, hey, buy this product, and they send you a check. That might not seem like hard work because it's not hard work, but that's earning your money.
Yeah.
I mean, there's all kinds of influencers out there that simply go post something and they get paid to do it. So I just always felt like it was like that guy that I think he was a punter for UCF. He the NCAA was like he had a successful YouTube channel, and they said, "Hey, you pick playing football for UCF or you pick your YouTube channel, but you're
Really?
not getting both." Yeah, because he was making money off of it, and in their minds, he was using his name and his notoriety as a player to that's really why he was having success as a YouTuber. And really, I mean, the content, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was more humor, and so he was being judged by the NCAA for kind of going out there and making money. And it's like I never agreed with that, man. It was never what they should have been paid for stuff like that.
Ty Hasty, thanks, man. We enjoy you being here as well. Roll damn Tide. Thank you, sir. Larry, thank you for being on here. We'll be back. We can get back to the basics, move the football consistently, get off the field on third down. Great special teams play. Look, man, the success, and the things that lead to success always look the same, right? I mean, did you watch any of the NFL playoffs this year? I'm a Ravens fan. The reason that the Ravens aren't in there, they turned the ball over. They're better than Buffalo.
And Mark Andrews can't catch a 2-point conversion.
Mark Andrews dropped. Well, he fumbled once and dropped a bunch of passes. But I mean, like, you can't make mistakes. They just play clean football. The Chiefs, I don't even know how they keep doing it, honestly. I mean, I know they get a lot of help from the officials, but they still make plays. And it's like, they just don't make mistakes. They're just not a whole lot of mistakes being made. And Alabama used to be that team that never made mistakes. I can remember years where we just didn't fumble the ball. We didn't throw interceptions. We didn't turn it over. And then when that stuff started happening towards the end of Saban's tenure, like, man, what's going on here?
Well, I think that was part of it, but I also will say, I think that Alabama, even like recent years under Nick Saban compared to when he first got there and through the majority of his tenure, I thought they handled adversity better too. Like sometimes you are going to drop passes, and sometimes you are going to accidentally fumble the football, and sometimes you are going to actually accidentally, have a coverage bust and give up a long touchdown. But it's how you respond to those things. And it seemed like when they would have some of those miscues, and they were, it felt like few and far between. I just think they had the mental fortitude to kind of put their head down and get through it. And maybe you're not seeing that as much anymore. Now, granted, I think that's a problem across college football. Yeah, I think the mental tuck. I mean, when you can tuck tail and run anytime there's adversity and just go somewhere else,
Right.
the coach yells at you a little too hard. Hey, I'll
Yeah.
just transfer, or any of these things. I don't think you're. It's doing the player a service as far as being able to get more playing time immediately, give them more opportunities. I guess put some money in their pocket. From that standpoint, it benefits the players, but long-term benefits, I don't know that it necessarily does.
Go back to the message board. Love to see all you guys, by the way. And I recognize you guys from the season. You know that. Milroe progressed with Reese as OC, but regressed under Sheridan. I can't argue with that. I mean, watching the way that the season ended, Milroe to me looked horrible. I mean, to the point, Clint, where I was like, and I still am a fan of his, and I want to see him do really well in the NFL, and I like him. I may run into him at the Senior Bowl stuff this week, and I think the world of him as a person. But 2 of the last 3 games were horrible for him. So I mean, is it Sheridan's fault? Is it Milroe? Is it the offensive line? I mean, where would you put that if you had to put it somewhere?
I think it's a combination of factors. I will give Tommy Reese a lot of credit. I do think that he started to figure Milroe out and how to properly utilize him.
Mm-hmm.
It was still, a little predictable. It's difficult not to be predictable based off of what Milroe does well, because, sometimes it can look like you're getting too cute, where it's like, hey, it's 3rd and short, quarterback power, let him pick up this 3rd down. And then, if you decide to get cute, maybe catch the defense off guard and then it doesn't work, everybody's like, man, you got a freaking 225-pound quarterback that runs with power. What are you doing? But the defense knows what you're doing. And so when you do it, if they stop it, then it's like, okay, you're getting too predictable. Like everybody knew you were going to be doing that. So, I mean, it's like it's catch-22. But what I will say is it almost obviously the starting point for Jalen Milroe compared to Will Anderson was different.
Yeah.
But do you remember Will Anderson's last year at Alabama, based off of what he had done the previous year? The frustration from fans, it's like he's not living up to the standard that he had set for himself the previous year. Now, offenses were giving him an absurd amount of attention. I feel like some of it was unfair, but it was almost like, and you can't blame him for it because it's understandable, but it's almost like one foot's out the door. He knows where he's putting it all on the line every Saturday, or he's trying to, but there's this in the back of his mind. You got to stay healthy, man. Your entire future's in front of you. I thought he managed that about as well as you could ask. Like when you compare what he did his last season in Alabama compared to like Jadeveon Clowney, after that monster hit against Michigan in the bowl game, go look at him. His last year at South Carolina wasn't nearly as effective. And it was a lot of people, there was rumors that he was going to sit out and not even play the following season because it's like, go make your money. But it's like Jalen Milroe didn't start at the same point as Will Anderson. Like his highs, his next to last year was not even close to where the heights that Will Anderson had reached. But it was almost like this entire season, there was something else there, where it was like, okay, you finished number 6 in the Heisman last year. You're the Heisman favorite going into this season. Everybody's talking about you potentially being the number 1 overall pick. It's a weak quarterback class, great opportunity for you. And I think with that came a lot of pressure. I think, I don't know. It seems like that maybe there was something there as far as kind of having one foot out the door.
Yeah. Tristan loves calling it mildew. I've seen you other guys do that too. And being on here, Clint, I get called names too. So I laugh about it, but he didn't think he had the ability from the neck up. I don't know. I mean, to me, I felt like I just thought after watching the first half of the Georgia game that Milroe was going to turn it around and have a great, year. Like he was going to take advantage of the mid-range ball and throw. He was so good in that game throwing the football, but he never found it again. I don't feel like I ever saw that same quarterback, and maybe that's the way that the defenses attacked him.
I think that was the way the defenses attacked him. It was part of that. And when I say what I say about, having the 1 foot out the door, that's the kind of the moment that I kind of felt like that was starting to take hold.
Right.
Where it's like, okay, based off of what I just did, huge question marks that people had, like, hey, you can throw the deep ball, great. You're one of the most, if not the most dynamic runners in college football at the quarterback position, great. But can you take advantage of what defenses are giving you? Utilize the short to intermediate parts of the field consistently. In that first half, it was like we had never seen the Milroe doing the things that he was able to do as far as taking advantage. And even Kirby Smart at halftime, like as soon as it was halftime, they interviewed him.
Yeah. He was like,
he's like, I got to be honest, we didn't see some of this stuff coming. And he didn't say this, me kind of paraphrasing.
I know what you're saying. That's exactly how he felt.
Yeah, and we all felt that way.
Yeah.
Like watching
What's
him.
going on here?
Yeah, but from that point, it's like this cat's gonna be, because at that point I was doing Heisman comparisons, looking at his numbers compared to Tim Tebow and Cam Newton and all these people. I was every bit as guilty as anybody you will find with the Heisman hype. And hey, this cat, playing the way he's playing in the first half against Georgia, that is an NFL quarterback that is going to not only be a good starter, but I wouldn't say, he's there, but just the growth. And we saw growth over the course of the last season. And then you see the growth happen at the beginning of this year, leading up to the Georgia game, and then through the first half of the Georgia game. And it's like, I just thought with the way that this guy's continuing to grow each and every year, the sky's the limit for him. And then from that point forward, just something never felt quite right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Hey guys, thanks for hanging out with us on Cover Crimson. This is just kind of like a thing we're going to start doing, some of these live forums, just hang out and talk a little football during the off season. But if you're not a member, please like and subscribe to our channel. And remember, we're brought to you by mybookie.ag. Got a big game coming up in 2 weeks. Take advantage of that next round promo code at mybookie.ag. But they keep the lights on for us, so we appreciate you supporting them and us here too. And then you got Clint at covercrimson.com breaking down the transfer portal, breaking down the roster, talking about everything going on. We get on the message board and debate everything that's happening in Alabama football. So you guys make sure that you join us there as well. So, all right, back to the comments. What's your prediction with the upcoming brutal schedule for Alabama? I want to say this, Clint, first off. The NCAA playoff committee, they sucked, okay? And one of the reasons that they sucked so bad is that they didn't appreciate teams that played like really good schedules. They were so dumb that all they looked at was win-loss records. But your win-loss record's going to be good if you don't play anybody. Indiana, SMU, Clemson. So you can't really look at that. In sports, you got to look at the level of competition that you're playing. So with that said, we played a tough schedule. We got a tougher schedule coming up. This is open up at Florida State, got Wisconsin. And then the regular SEC schedule. Come on, man.
Well, first of all, people are going to look at Florida State. This is one of those types of programs where it's just highly unlikely that they're going to be 2-10 caliber 2 years in a row.
Too much money.
I'm not saying they're gonna make some kind of massive leap back into an elite category and play or be as effective as they were 2 years ago when they're going undefeated and trying to get in the college football playoff. But they're not going to be a 2-10 football team next year. And you're going to Tallahassee. And so a lot of people, regardless of how that game plays out, Alabama destroys them. Hey, it's more the same with Florida State. They're a 2-10 football team. Don't brag about that. They're not good. If they give Alabama fits, hey, how in the world did you struggle against a 2-10 football team last year? Or you lose, and then it doesn't really matter what the record is, even though a lot of people will still bring up the 2-10.
You know what they call that, Clint? You're damned if you do, and you're damned if you don't. You ever heard that?
Yeah, just don't. And I want people to understand, if they go into Tallahassee and they absolutely railroad Florida State, that is going to be impressive. And people will, and you never know how that will affect their psyche, and maybe that leads to another struggling season. Obviously, the way Alabama beat them in Atlanta back in 2017, I will say that seemed to have some lingering effects. Now, granted, they took the quarterback out for the season. That certainly affected things, but I just want people to understand that going to Florida State is going to be tough. You got Louisiana Monroe. You got Wisconsin at home. It's like, okay, good opponent, respectable opponent, not really super threatening, but I mean, doesn't mean they can't beat you for sure. And that's the type of game Alabama kind of struggle with this year, where it's like they're good enough to cause you problems, but you probably think you got it in the bag. But dude, from that point forward, now you got a bye week before, but your first SEC game is going to Athens to play Georgia.
Right. Fun.
Yeah. I mean, and you got, at Missouri a couple weeks later, and you got Vanderbilt in there. You can't forget about them. I mean, at this point, but you got,
is Missouri going to be Missouri this year though?
Brett
kept telling me last year, Missouri. I was like, Missouri's no good. And then at the end of the year, I was like, you know what? He's right. They're pretty good. I mean, like, you got to give them credit, man. If you win like 9 or 10 games in the conference, man, you've had a hell of a season,
Yeah. I mean, and Missouri's doing some pretty good things to the transfer portal. Do I think they're going to be like a top 10, top 15 football team? I don't know. Probably not, to be honest, but they're going to be respectable. They're going to be a tough going there is going to be tough.
Mm-hmm.
So you got at Georgia, you got Vanderbilt at home, you got at Missouri, then you play Tennessee, who is going to be, everybody expects them to be really good next year. Then the very next week, you go on the road and you got to play South Carolina in Columbia. Then you get a bye week. Then you get LSU at home. Mm-hmm. Another strong. Now that's at home. That's great. You don't have to go to Baton Rouge. You don't have to do that night game thing at Baton Rouge. That's great. But LSU is going to be tough. You get Oklahoma at home.
Yeah,
like, okay.
They're going to be way better.
Yeah, they're going to be another one that is probably going to be. Now, granted, I mean, with Mateer coming in, they're going to be pretty good.
Oh, look, if the guy doesn't win this year, he's going to get fired, so.
I did think they were going to have Knowles as their defense coordinator, though.
Yeah, let's just kind of talk about that for a second, because a lot of people thought that.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of smoke, and I don't know. I'd heard something about. I don't know. Sometimes I read these things, and I always judge people pretty hard. Like when you say some absurd statement, like you'll go and share a thing on your Facebook, and it's like a quote from Nick Saban that's like so clearly false. Like Nick Saban got up on the podium and was like, "Oh, we're going to destroy Auburn. We don't have any respect for you." It was like anytime I see somebody do that, it's fake, and somehow people fall for it and they'll share it and they'll believe it. And it's like, come on, that would be all over every TV. I mean, that'd be on Fox News and CNN, not ESPN. If Nick Saban all of a sudden started talking trash about their arch rival. I mean, the fact that you're not turning on the TV and seeing that everywhere should tell you it's fake. People fall for it and always, take little subtle jabs at people, like have fun. I can't believe you fell for that. My parents have done that before, by the way. But so I don't know. I could be falling for the same thing, but I did come across something where like, maybe his wife or his girlfriend, I don't know what his marital status is, to be honest, but maybe girlfriend, she has like a son in Oklahoma that's going to be playing like high school football, and he was wanting this or that, and it's like just the connection seemed to be there, and I thought, man, there seems to be something to this Oklahoma thing.
Right.
And then out of nowhere, he's from Pennsylvania, so it's not like it's some sort of outlandish landing spot, but just with all the momentum carrying him seemingly to Norman, I thought it was strange that the last second it's like, hey, he is actually leaving Ohio State. That part was very true, but he's just going to Penn State instead of Oklahoma. I just thought that was pretty crazy.
Yeah, right. Same conference, arch rival. A lot of people have, which is crazy to me. They got Penn State number one, but what you're going to see right now is these programs that love college football that haven't had like championship success in a while, they're going to go out and buy as many players as they can and try to, basically do what Ohio State did last year and buy a championship. And
do you think he's getting $3 million. So do you think
I'm telling you, they're going to do that with players too. Don't be surprised if you don't turn around and Penn State's doing the same thing. I mean, there's no rules on it. I mean,
do you think that not only, $3 million is a lot of money for a coordinator, and he's very good. One of the best defense coordinators in college football. This is, I wouldn't say this is quite the equivalent, but this is almost like Steve Sarkisian going, taking a lateral move when he was at Alabama to go to LSU to be the offense coordinator. Like not quite going to Auburn, not their biggest rival, that would be Michigan, but kind of a rival. It's pretty wild that he was willing to do this. But do you think, hey, he's worth that money to us if he can also, you're bringing over one of the best defensive minds in college football. So that's a huge plus. But also, do you think it's like a targeting players, like try to poach some of those guys from Ohio State and have them follow their defensive coordinator?
I mean, it could be. What's crazy to me is how different the landscape is, too. Like, think about this. The offensive coordinator at Ohio State is Chip Kelly. He left the UCLA job. Now, I know UCLA is going bankrupt. I heard that they're in big financial trouble, losing a bunch of money, whatever. But he left the head coaching job to go be an offensive coordinator, right? And then you got the defensive coordinator. It's like, hey, I'm leaving. I like it here. We just won a championship. Give me my ring. But I'm also going to go get paid $3 million to go to Penn State, where they haven't won in a while. When I was a kid, Penn State used to win championships.
They were good, man. I mean, they're a historically really good, and they're always in like the conversation. I mean, they were always kind of in that like 7-8 range, feels like,
they're always there, but they're not
10, 11. Yeah. It's like, I mean, in the 14 playoff, they were always on the door, knocking on the door, just couldn't actually get in the 12 team playoffs. They were able to get in and, but I don't know. That was a strange move. I just wonder if you'll see more of that. I mean, $3 million, once a coordinator crosses that threshold, I mean, it's kind of like in the NFL where these quarterbacks use each other. I mean, it's more in quarterbacks, it's every position, but they use each other, like getting the major contracts kind of build off each other. And it's like, hey, he got paid this. Now I want to get paid this. And then it's just constantly seeing those numbers and stuff go up. I mean, once you cross this threshold for some of the elite coordinators in college football, I mean, are you going to have to start paying them this?
Maybe. Skylar, thanks, man. This is our happy hour. We're going to start doing more of these. Look, it's the off season now, so Clint and I are like, man, what can we give you guys that we haven't really given you guys? And that's, kind of having the old like live shows that we used to do. I used to do the Monday night quarterback show. And Clint would come on there. I'd have Joseph Hastings, and you remember Andrew Bone? He'd come on there. And
I think I remember Andrew Bone. Yeah, I seem to recall that name.
Great some of these names. You know these names. Jimmy, your man, your main man, yeah. Jimmy. Like, so we would have all these guys that would come on, and we were just like, hey, we need to do some more of our, like, just during the off season, get by shows. And then recruiting, we're going to start doing a recruiting show too. We know recruiting. But it's just for you guys. So sorry we didn't. We just threw it out there. We didn't know if anybody was showing up, Clint. We got 72 of you guys. Thumbs up, 72, please.
Yeah, I mean, and this will continue to get bigger the more we get the word out, but we're just hanging out, man. We got questions. We love talking college football. With this kind of thing, there's kind of, we might have some loose topic that we want to talk about or whatever, but we kind of want you guys to steer the conversation. We just want to hang out with you guys. This is the off season, but we don't want y'all going anywhere, to a point where we might try to make this a call-in show once a week. It's not anything definitive, but we'd love to get some of you guys back on the phone lines and just, so contribute to the comments, because we're going to read them and we're going to let you guys kind of steer the conversation a lot of these times.
Hey, thanks, Skylar. Skylar's like, he's already given us the thumbs up. Shane wants to know, where's Ryan Grubb? So I'm going to let you, Clint, tell him, when is Ryan Grubb taking over as the offensive coordinator at the University of Alabama? Go ahead and tell everybody.
On February 16th at 7:03 p.m., there's going to be an announcement. And no, I mean, I
hope he comes, man.
I'm not gonna lie. If it's February 16th, I don't even care if I got the time wrong. I want somebody to refer back to this, video. Does it concern you, Mick, that it's? I mean, at this point, it feels like I feel like there would have been some movement on it, but it's also from Bama's perspective, like the fact that no one else has really made a move for Ryan Grubb. Like I haven't seen him connected anywhere. And spring practice, I mean, the season just ended, but spring practice isn't too far away. So you would feel like you'd start to hear something.
Yeah. So I'll tell you what, to me, this is what I'm thinking. We kept hearing buzz before he got fired, or at least I did, right?
Yeah.
Like, hey, keep an eye on this, because there's a good chance he might come back, whatever. He might come here. And then the season ended and he did get fired. And and then it's been really quiet. And I almost think that's good because, that's kind of like that. These are his guys, man. I mean, it's not like he's going somewhere that people don't want him. I mean, DeBoer and him are like, pork and beans, man. They're like peanut butter and jelly. Like those two have been together through the wars. So we'll see what happens. I really think that, I still think there's a good chance that the guy ends up being at Alabama. I mean, I don't know what his role would be. Who knows? But when Saban was coach, we always spent a lot of money on all these guys that had all these jobs. And when they got rid of, when Saban left, they got rid of a lot of those jobs. But there's money out there for DeBoer to have the people that he needs around him to have success. And if Ryan Grubb is going to make us win against the teams that we're better than, but we lost to last year, then we need him. And I'm not, I don't have anything against Coach Sheridan, but it wasn't good enough last year. That wasn't good enough.
What I don't like about it is I'm confident that DeBoer's going to right the ship regardless. Okay. And I'm confident that Sheridan is a better play caller than what we saw in 2024.
Oh, wow.
And so, what I'm afraid of is if Ryan Grubb does come back and he is the offensive coordinator, not an offensive analyst or something like that, kind of transitioning him in that way, I'm worried that he's going to get the credit when really it was going to happen anyways. But everybody's like, man, Kalen DeBoer can't afford to lose this guy again because this guy's them two together is, as somebody referred in the comments, Skyler as Batman and Robin. And, it does feel that way. And I'm not saying I would be upset about it, but I think Alabama's going to right the ship regardless. I think Kalen DeBoer, we said it after he lost Ryan Grubb, where it's like, that is a loss, but this is Kalen DeBoer's show. It has always been Kalen DeBoer's show. And then everybody sees it, but it's like, I just don't think he had the offensive pieces that really fit his system. And granted, there's a problem with that because it's like, you got to tweak your offense to fit your personnel. But some of the things that he did at Washington that made him such an effective coach, and really his teams, or especially his offense, is so effective, was, he wasn't able to do those things. And so, I don't want Ryan Grubb to get too much of the credit if he comes back, because I think they're going to right the ship regardless.
A serious question for you, Clint. Is Batman and Robin the best superhero tag team of all time, and of all the tag teams of all time? And you can use whoever. I mean, you could use Hawk and Animal. Do you know Hawk and Animal?
Wait, what is that?
The Legion of Doom. Hawk and Animal, the Road Warriors from wrestling. The Outsiders. Do you know the Outsiders? Hall and Nash.
Okay.
How about the Mega Powers? Do you know the Mega Powers?
Yes.
Hogan and Macho Man. You ever heard of those two before?
Hey, the best duo is Fulton Reed and Dean. What was his name? Fulton Reed and Dean Portman, the Bash brothers from the Mighty Ducks. That's the best tandem of all time.
Okay.
Not, and there isn't a close second. You can go Shaq and Kobe. You can go Pippen and Jordan. You can go Batman and Robin, Dean Portman and Fulton Reed. That's the best duo of all time.
Well, Robin's like the guy that lets you down. I mean, but when you needed your utility belt falls off, Robin's there with, somehow he's going to give you what you need to be the hero. He's not the hero, but he's the guy to help you get to be the hero. Yeah, maybe that's what Alabama needs with Ryan Grubb. Oh man, some people were dropping off like, man, I don't want to hear any more of this superhero talk. I'm not some of these kids know all these superhero movies, and then they have like the movies that lead into the movies for the superheroes, and that, you know, and then like the Avengers and this and that. I don't know all that stuff, but I will watch the movies and enjoy them. Iron Man's my favorite, and he doesn't have like, there's no like Iron Man and, you know, some other guy that's like his tag team guy, you know?
Yeah.
Is he your favorite superhero, Iron Man? He's not. You're like you look to me, I'm gonna look at you, Clint. Let me see if I can telepathically figure out who your superhero is. You're a Spider-Man guy.
What? I'll give you one more guess.
All right. One more. Let me see here. You Superman. You a Superman guy?
I'm not a Superman guy. I will say, I growing up, favorite superhero was Wolverine for sure.
Okay. So
But I'm a Deadpool guy now.
Deadpool. Okay.
And it's really granted, I liked Deadpool fine before, but it just, I mean, that character, man, it's my spirit animal, or I want it to be at least. Yeah, but Venom is a good, you know, anti-hero. Yeah, I like that.
The Wonder Twins. Do you remember the Wonder Twins? Hey, how about the rest on G.I. Joe, the Zartan? You hit him and his brother would feel it.
How do we get here?
I don't know. That's what this show's supposed to be, man.
That's right. That's right.
To be like where because we come at you with a lot of serious football talk, and we love that, man. But we just kind of want to have at least once a week where we just get together, and whether we take calls or you guys get in the comment section, and we, you know, at least we do, you know, like maybe an hour just, you know, bull crapping about what's going on and get us through the off season type of thing, you know. And that's one of the things that we kind of were kind of kicking around last week, and I was like, yeah, we used to do this kind of stuff, you know. Yeah, I've seen this before.
Clint Gillispie.
You've seen this before?
Mick Lamb sounds pretty badass.
I told you guys already. I already know Clint Gillispie. I already know him.
Oh yeah, that's right. You do.
He's a real guy. He lives in Houston.
That is pretty wild.
It's pretty funny. All right, so as we kind of, you know, we steer this thing back to college football. When you look at where Alabama is right now, all those guys that transferred out, you know, we lost a lot more guys than we brought in, but then we had this recruiting class is really good. And now the 26 recruiting class, we got one guy. You know, should I be worried about that at all?
Don't do it, Mick. Don't do it.
I mean, like, but
don't do it.
There,
don't do it. We're in January. People will be having these conversations in March, April, and May, and I'll be like, "It is too soon. You need to calm down." So January, yes. I mean, it's like they're going through the evaluation process. A lot of 2026 guys. I mean, they're a lot of offers are going out right now. Junior film just wrapped up just over a month ago. Well, I guess a couple months ago for high school. They kind of play into, I think, early December. State championships or early December. So really, a couple of months. But yeah, I mean, I agree with King Creasy here. We need another cold summer. I think you'll get another cold summer. I wouldn't be concerned. They're going through their process. But yeah. Don't be sweating that, Mick.
Mm-hmm. Well, and as many guys that kind of decommit too, but you got junior days coming up. The first junior day, what is it? February 1st, right? And so that'll be good, man. And the list of guys that are showing up to this list. If Zion Gibson ends up being the guy that really does commit to Alabama, he's the only guy on the list right now out of Gadsden City.
Good player.
We got to chip in a little something to his NIL, guys. We just got to. I don't know how. Maybe we all buy the Gibson gear, but the fact that he's the only guy in the class right now, I love that. The other guy that I really want us to get is going to be there, Tank Jones, who's a 5-star edge from St. Paul's. Our friend, you guys might have heard of him before, Jake Coker. Yeah, he went there, so he knows about the Tank. So he was saying that the Tank is it's like us and Oregon. And so, I mean, maybe somebody else, but I mean, like, come on, man, you're not going out to Oregon. You're going right up to Tuscaloosa where you're going to be at home. We're all going to support you too. We need a guy named Tank on our team.
Yeah. Auburn got to have it a few years ago with Tank Bigsby. It's Alabama's turn.
Yeah, right.
I will say, you make a good point about that. And could you imagine if Alabama fans started this like trend where it's like, hey, those guys that commit to Alabama
Hook them
and
up.
they stay committed, they get hooked up so much by the fans. You got like an apparel line that you come out with or whatever, Alabama fans just go all in on it because you were there and they support you and all that. I don't know if just that loyalty, you could build some of that from like the get-go, keep guys committed. I don't know exactly. I mean, I'm sure if someone came along and offered them enough money, they'd, maybe that loyalty would diminish quickly. I think it would be pretty cool. I agree with you. Those guys that commit early and they're kind of part of the class that they're building it with all these other guys. They're helping recruit players and stuff. I do think fans need to show that loyalty, a lot of appreciation.
AK, thanks for donating, man. I'll tell you, the guy, like, to me, that guy was Jalen Mbakwe. And when I saw he was going to transfer out, I was like, hold on a second now. You know me, Clint, I was like really alarmed by that because he was that guy. He was that guy that was like in that recruiting class that, that went out and helped us keep the guys that we had and help bring in other guys. Like, he was really like the type of Alabama player. And I don't mean university. I just mean like Alabama high school player that always wanted to play for the university and then did. And it's like, you can't lose those guys. They're going to come in and try to buy those guys away. So AK, thank you for donating. I'm not going to sit here and tell you I've donated to Yay Alabama, but I definitely would love to be involved in it somehow. But yeah, I mean, those kind of guys are special. You got to get the in-state guys and then build on, build from out of there. And I think they're really trying to do that. Courtney Morgan and Kalen DeBoer, and you look at where they've been like recruiting, right? They started in Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia. They flew to Ohio. They've been in Texas. Like, they're going different places, but it started here. Last year they took over and they went with what they knew, right? And that was out on the West Coast, and they killed it out there, man. I mean, like, we are like Matter Day South, right? We got all those guys, but you got to get the guys in your backyard, man. And I think they're trying to do that. But so bringing in Tank would definitely be a part of that.
These are the kind of recruiting battles that you got to win. I was the first to defend Kalen DeBoer. I thought people were very much overreacting to the in-state stuff in 2025 and because of what you just laid out. And he was new to Alabama. He hadn't recruited these guys. He was comfortable with a lot of West Coast guys. He had recruited them, done the whole thing. So it made sense. But these are the type of recruiting battles where he's had some time, relationships have been established, and you're going head to head with Oregon, and Oregon's doing some really good things right now. Obviously, Dan Lanning has built quite a production over there on the West Coast, and you got to figure out a way to out recruit him and get a player who should be staying in state instead of heading all the way across the country, like you've been able to do with a couple of their guys. But I mean, it needs to. Not saying you got to build a fence around Alabama, but some of these in-state wins would be absolutely huge for the Tide.
Yep. Trainwreck 70's like, man, donating doesn't mean anything with the paper. You got Nike and Oracle and places like that. First off, I love the Chappelle meme. I love that, man. I was sick last week, and I like, I couldn't get out of bed. I was in bed all week, and I came in and did shows, and then went right back to bed. And I watched those Chappelle stand-ups. I mean, like,
that was a different comedy, man. You can't get by with that stuff now.
Man. On that, no, I mean, these are like his recently, like Netflix comedies, like you're talking about.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the old skits.
No, I like the Chappelle shows too, but I'm just saying, like, his stand-up is so funny. I love it.
Oh yeah.
He's so funny. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we don't have a bunch of millionaires at Alabama. It's not like we got oil money and stuff like that. There's a lot of us, and we got to take advantage of that. Clint and I got onto this last year, and then Greg Byrne came out and was like, he was like watching the show and he said everything we were talking about, and I believe that. I think that where our strength is that if we all just contribute and we all buy into what they're trying to do to bring in players until they get it figured out. Right. I wouldn't be opposed to, like you said, Shane, I wouldn't be opposed to paying 4% on the tax of the tickets because I don't even go anymore. Right. Yeah. I'm sorry. I don't go. They're too slow in the concession stands for me, Clint. If I got bourbon, I need a Diet Coke for it. I don't want to miss the whole third quarter.
How'd you have bourbon?
It's normally in my shoe.
Yes. next time you go to a Bama game, you're getting those shoes checked. I guarantee you. They're gonna be on the lookout for Mick Gillispie.
They're gonna be like, look, there he is, get him.
And little do they know you put them in your wife's shoes.
You can do it now. Look, this is what happened with age. You don't see me there much because I don't go much anymore. But when I do go, I'll go to the zone or to the boxes now. And people they can just have it in there, So I just walk up there and it's somebody else's bourbon. And I don't, but as a regular fan, which I've been a regular fan, I mean, I'm just a regular fan like everybody else. Hey, man, look at this. Michael Huckabee. Thanks for coming by, man. Thanks for coming by and seeing Coker and me at Innisfree, man. Love the show. Love you, man. Thank you. Roll Tide to you in Maryland. The guy was from Annapolis.
How does it feel to be a celebrity with Jay Coker?
Coker's the celebrity.
You know what? I take back what I said. It's not Portman and Reed. It's Coker and Mick.
The funny thing is that when and I love talking about Brett. You guys know I miss him. But when Brett was on the show before we lost him, and people would come to, and some of you guys might have done this. Like people would come. And Jake didn't really get it yet. Like, and people were like, I love Brett's open. I love big sexies, this and that. And I just remember like the whole plan wasn't, we wanted Coker to figure it out on his own. We didn't want to be like, hey man, this guy's hilarious, cause he would mess with him on the air. And we wanted you guys to be a part of that on the tailgate show. So, yeah. Coker is the man. He is the man. You know what I like about him is that he's like do you remember that show Greatest American Hero? It was a show when I was a kid. It was a superhero show. And this guy was like a regular dude, but he had like a superhero suit, but he didn't really know how to use it. So he's like flying and he crashes all the time, but he always like wins. Like he always ends up getting the bad guys and all that. Coker's like this. He's the most unassuming, like the guy won a national championship as a quarterback at Alabama. Like it's okay if you want to flaunt that a little bit, but he just does not do it, man. He's the most humble guy. I really did. I didn't expect to like him this much. I'm going to be honest with you now, like when they put us together, I thought, wow, this guy will be cool, but he didn't return my messages fast enough, Clint. So I was like, I don't know if I'm going to like this guy, but I'll try. And now I love him, man. Like I really consider him a great friend. I do. And I respect the hell out of him. He's got he's just a humble guy and he's got a great work ethic and he's just constantly involved in stuff. So, you guys see him on here, when we do shows and, I poke fun at him and give him a hard time, but he's just genuinely a great dude. Like really, like he's just genuinely a great dude. And that's for like bros. That's like the biggest compliment you can give anybody. And I know like other players that I'm friends with that played at Alabama that I've got really good relationships with that are, best friends of mine. I remember them asking me like, hey, what's he really like? And me being like, no, he's a great dude. Like, no, seriously. No, man, he's effing great guy. And then they get to know him and they're like, you're right, man. He's a great guy. So
that's 100%.
Big compliment there. Yeah, you're right, man. Humble assassin. Hey, dude, you go back and watch those videos of him playing quarterback. I was probably too drunk to remember a lot of those games. I was there. No, and look, AK, man, I was doing the tailgate show in 2014. And I didn't know Coker. I didn't know any of those guys. I always liked Blake Sims as a football player, but I just didn't like him as a quarterback. And I remember thinking to myself, I said this on the air a lot back then. I was on Tide in Tuscaloosa, the radio station, that that Coker's a guy that can win you a championship, and I'm not disagreeing with that. I think they could have used both guys. Look, Blake did a lot of great stuff. Like, don't get me wrong. He did win an SEC championship, but man, when the light bulb went off for Coker, you start going back and you think about like towards the middle end of that season and then the run that Alabama had. Think if he could have came back for one more year.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, he was because of that humbleness and the fact that he was tough as nails. He just he was that. I think that he perfectly represented that football team.
Oh yeah,
in 2015, like gritty, tough. But you didn't really have any showboaters or anything like that, or at least not that I can remember. Those were some good times, man.
Mm-hmm.
Watching those teams, like it just some of those, and granted, we saw that from other quarterbacks too at Alabama, but just Coker, I do feel like, I mean, I know I accidentally take shots at him all the time. I really don't mean to.
It's not really that. I just like to mess with him.
I know. I say something like Keelan Russell's the most talented quarterback to ever come to Alabama, or one of the most, and you somehow make that a shot at Jake. You throwing him on the screen during that tailgate show after I said that. I'm in the middle of talking. I don't know how many people here saw that, but I said that Keelan Russell was one of the most talented quarterbacks that has ever come to the University of Alabama. And I meant nothing by it as far as Jake, but it was me, Jake, and Mick. And all of a sudden, I'm in the middle of talking, and I can obviously see both of us. And then I just see Coker get blown up, and me and Mick, go off the screen. And you claimed that was not what you were trying to do. But as soon as you did that, I realized how that could be taken towards him. And the whole show went off the rails at that point. It was for about 2 or 3 minutes.
He knows what to expect at this point, though. And he gives it back to you. But he knows, like, the thing about it is we're on almost episode 125 of Elephant in the Room. And I can just like a lot of times I'll think of something and I don't want to give myself away. But he's one of these guys, like, if I try to look at my phone or if I try to get, like, not pay attention at all, he calls me out like he's the teacher at a school, like, what are you doing, Mick? You not paying attention? Because he's really watching you. He's really good at picking up like physical cues, and he'll know right away. Like, I can't even like really mess with him too, but I never get away with it very long, because he sees it coming. So. And I love this one right here, man. I hope Ty Simpson is like him, man. I hope Ty Simpson brings that same physicality. I hope Ty Simpson goes out there and wins over the defense. I mean, we have Ryan Anderson in here, and Ryan Anderson's one of the baddest dudes that was on that defense. And you talk about a bad defense, but you talk about guys that weren't afraid to get in there and mix up. Jonathan Allen's one of my top 5 ever Alabama players. Love
easily. I mean, that
and you got him, and you start going through that list of guys that they had on that defense back then. And the love and respect that they have for Coker, it's not always like that. The quarterback wears a black jersey. You don't let him get hit like the other guys do, and all that. But when your quarterback is like Coker, and he's not afraid to truck somebody out there, just like you said, Skylar, it changes that team. It changed the mentality of that team.
If you respect guys who leave it all out there, and leaving it all out there can mean a lot of different things. When you've got guys, your quarterback trying to run through defenders to pick up first downs and stuff, taking big hits because he knows, hey, if I don't dive for this, we're not getting a first down, and we need a first down. So. What happens to me happens to me. We're getting this first. Like that is such an infectious mentality when you've got that. And I mean, I don't know. I guess we'll find out about Ty Simpson, but I think he's got that same really talented guy coming out of high school. Everybody knows, former 5-star player, and he's got that same humbleness to him. You know, when you hear him talking stuff, he's a coach's son. He knows the game extremely well, but he's very humble. You know, so we know at least he checked some of those boxes. So making those comparisons, we'll find out that one of the things that separated Coker and what made him special, in my opinion, was the toughness and the grittiness. And, you know, we just haven't had many opportunities to see that out of Ty Simpson yet. Not saying that he doesn't have it, just saying we don't know. But if he does, he's going to earn the respect of that locker room pretty quick.
All right, I love this idea, man. And look, the reason I love this idea is that these are the things that we've got to figure out to make money for this NIL, right? So Michael's like, hey, what if we use the stadium 8 or 9 times a year to monetize it, Saban Steakhouse, like Shula's, like, hey, I was at what's that place called? Just last week, 2 weeks ago, in Gatlinburg, and I had a steak, and it was like it really was like $250. It was so good, though. I keep wanting to call it Brentwood, but it wasn't. It was oh man, I can't believe I can't remember the name of it. Anyway, it was amazing. And like Shula's, you know, like doing stuff like that is exactly what I'm talking about. When I hear Tennessee is putting a tax on their tickets, when I hear that Tennessee's putting a business district around Neyland Stadium to be able to capitalize on their fan base, to be able to have money for NIL, I'm like, yeah, dude, that's exactly the thing that we need to be doing right now. I mean, I don't know how this could work or couldn't work, but we have to be creative. And then eventually, you know, they'll have rules and it won't be like it is right now. But if we weren't so far behind the times, you know, we could go out there and buy a roster like Ohio State. You know, their coach never won a big game, and then all of a sudden, you know, he runs through the playoffs like a hot knife through butter.
Yeah. I think Alabama is doing better than people think with the NIL, but I also think that there's some things that you can do to really separate. And we've talked about that, and some fans don't want to do it. Other fans are totally willing to. If you don't want to do it, well, I mean, I'm not here to tell anybody what to do with their money. I just know that everybody that's here watching, I would venture to guess, wants Alabama to be successful. And so you go about supporting Alabama in the way that you see fit. But you know, I do know that in this current era, if you've got some money to spare and you're willing to go spend it and help, I know that it would certainly help Alabama.
Greenbrier Restaurant, Gatlinburg.
And Gatlinburg, yeah, there's a Greenbrier up in North Alabama too.
Is there? There's one in North Alabama?
Yeah, I don't know if it's. I mean, I think it's like locally owned though.
Is it?
Yeah, I don't know.
It's like bourbon and a bunch of good steaks.
No,
this place
Greenbrier is more like a family restaurant.
No, this Greenbrier's like heat, man. But all right, guys. Well, look, this is what we wanted to do. We wanted to just break the ice with you for a Monday show. We're gonna figure out some call-in shows because we want to hear from you guys as well. We're going to start doing our recruiting show. It'd be like another live show that we'll do during the week. We'll have our regular content as well. Jake and I will get together tomorrow for Elephant in the Room. Clint will be doing stuff as well. EG's on here. You got, obviously Bama and Bourbon with Aaron Suttles and Lance Taylor. I saw Chris Stewart on here talking about the benching with Kelly. You know what? I mean, that's a big topic.
Yeah, go check that out. I mean, I haven't had a chance to.
But you know what? We've all been there, man. Get back up.
Yeah, it was, some post-game comments on social media from his mom made the rounds, and it's news.
I love his mom, by the way. She can dance. I saw her,
Yeah. I mean,
mom's a mom,
she's going to protect her baby.
Gotta do it.
Yeah, she's going to war for her kid. I mean, tell me a mom out there that wouldn't do that for their kid. And so you can't blame her. But Nate Oates knows what he's doing. I think at this point he's earned the trust of the fan base. So it was it created some interesting dialogue. But
what do you think though? I mean, like I and I'll tell you what I think. Like I love Mark Sears. He's the best player we've ever had, but he sucked. and he sucked at that particular game. And you know what? There's always somebody else out there, man. Like, and that's just kind of part of it to me, right?
I will say you will tell it exactly how you feel.
Yeah, I mean, I
respect that
love him,
about you.
but like he just was terrible. And I mean, I just think like in life, we're all like that, man. If we suck or we're not having a good day, he's on a team with too many good players not to play well.
That is a good point.
That's all it is.
I mean, with this much talent and stuff, you don't have to ride a guy who's not playing well in a game. You just don't do it. You don't have to do it. So I mean that's you've got enough guys to carry. It was an interesting game. And do you think that the way that the Auburn Tennessee game played out, do you think that had anything to do with like the reaction to? I don't know. It just that Auburn Tennessee game was awfully strange too.
Yeah. The officiating. Some of these games, man,
officials
like
don't
that
make
game
mistakes.
sucked, our game sucks, like all these fouls that they let go. I never know like when. I don't know, man. I mean, it is what it is to me. I think Sears is going to come back and he's going to be fine.
I do too. Yeah, I think
I
don't think we'll be talking about this here in a couple of days.
But I love that Nate Oates is saying basically like either you get it done or somebody else is going to take your job. I mean, the team has too many good players for one guy not to play his best.
Yeah, and I will say that says a lot about Nate Oates.
Yep.
I mean that takes some cojones. I mean, it because you got to know it probably wouldn't be a popular decision to make, but that also sends the message to every single other player on that team that no one on this roster or on this team is above that. I mean, it's a tough decision to make. I'm sure it's embarrassing for Mark. I'm sure, it was obviously, I think his mom said it was embarrassing in one of those comments, if I'm not mistaken. But the bottom line is I think it sends the message to the rest of the team, hey, you got to perform.
There was a coach that was the best. I'm telling you, Clint, there's been a lot of coaches. This guy was the best coach to ever coach this sport. And he got his team to the championship game. And he got there and they weren't playing well. And the guy that he had leading the way wasn't getting it done. But he didn't want to do it because he loved the guy. He's a great guy. But he just wasn't getting it done. And at the halftime of this huge event, he had to sit that guy down and put another guy in the game. You know what happened, Clint? Bama scored on a 2nd and 26 and stunned Georgia on a walk-off national championship. Still the greatest game of all time. And you know what that guy did? Instead of crying and going home, he stuck around. And then the next year that guy was hurt. He came in and won the SEC championship. That guy's also in the Super Bowl, and hopefully he wins the Super Bowl championship. It's part of life.
I am so sorry.
Do you know who I was talking about?
Taylor Swift. I hope that there are no Kansas City Chiefs fans in this chat. If there are, I'm sorry. But I already told EG, I've been trying to pick an NFL team, Mick. I've been really trying to do it.
Raven. You need to be a Raven.
I used to Ray Lewis was my favorite player.
Love Ray
of all time. I love Ed Reed. I love Terrell Suggs.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and so I kind of started following the Ravens, and then I started dating a girl from Baltimore when I got to college.
Oh, I know this story. Yeah,
and then we broke up, and then it became like everybody's always from now until the end of time they're going to think that this is because I'm a Ravens fan because of her, even though I'd started and it was because of that trio on defense.
Oh, I got you, man.
But
girls from my city are a little rough too.
But I will say that I've owned like Steelers shirts back in the day, like my uncle and my cousin and stuff. They were from Pittsburgh, and so when I was a kid, they'd bring Steelers memorabilia, shirts and hats and stuff. I've when I was dating her, she got me a Ravens jersey, a Terrell Suggs jersey. I'm not a big jersey wearer myself, to be honest, but that's back then I wore it during some games. But I will say I just never really owned anything NFL team related. And me and my wife were trying to pick. She was trying to urge me to pick somebody, and we had talked about several teams. I'm like, man, I like the local factor with like the Titans, but it's like I want to get behind an organization that I enjoy the organizational side of it, the GM decision making, all that stuff. There are certain NFL teams that fall in line with that, but we talked about the Eagles. I'm like, babe, what I won't do is we're not going to follow a team just for the players, because the players eventually move on.
Right.
And I did that with the Panthers there for a while. Love Cam Newton, love Luke Kuechly. I'm like, Panthers made sense. I followed them. Wouldn't have ever called myself a fan, but if anybody would ask, I said, I like watching the Panthers. As soon as they leave, then I'm like, what's the, this was pre-Bryce, but I'm like, what's the point here? So I learned the very valuable lesson. Now, for Christmas, on Christmas Day, I opened up a Philadelphia Eagles shirt for my wife, and she pretty much made the decision. She's like, and this was, granted, she bought this back in probably mid-November. So this is way before like playoffs and playoff run. But when she gave it to me on Christmas Day, I'm like, you know what? I think he kind of just nudged me, and the decision's been made. And
well, I hope they win, man. I would love to see Hurts finally get the championship.
I'm always going to be accused of being a bandwagoner, which is fair. I mean, I guess you can call it. And that's not the reason I'm jumping on, but I want it for Jalen. Can you imagine that story, brother?
Gotta be great,
man. I mean, just with what he went through, the fact that he came back against the same team in the same calendar year, had to replace in the second half. I will tell people from now until the end of time, and I remember standing on the field when that game was over, the SEC championship. I remember telling people the feeling I got during that moment, I don't know if anything will ever touch it, because I'm up in the press box. It's an open, at the time it was open air press box. And when Tua went down, I was like, oh, this is really bad.
Yeah.
And, the last time we had seen Jalen, in any sort of significant playing time was that Georgia game in the national title. And so I'm like, this isn't good. When I heard the crowd go absolutely berserk and just the electricity, I remember thinking, wow, that you couldn't, it was like they were 1 billion% confident in Jalen coming in there and getting the job done. I thought, I'm telling you, based off of this energy and stuff, I'm feeling pretty good about this, and just what he was able to do, man. From if he caps off a Super Bowl to go from that to coming in and doing that, and then being a second round pick, going to Oklahoma, earning his way into being a second round pick, and then wins a Super Bowl from now until the end of time, man, that will be one of the best 30 for 30s of all time.
Well, and if he wins it, I mean, he's beating a team that's trying to be the greatest dynasty ever.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm almost
done this. Like,
I'm almost pulling against the Chiefs as much as I am for the Eagles. I mean, maybe, I guess are we experiencing what other people feel about Bama?
I don't know, man. I just, the whole Taylor Swift thing, I'm not. Officiating, come on.
The officiating's bad. Big problem.
I mean, they get every call out there. But you know what? I mean, I love Patrick Mahomes. Won me my fantasy league. I've had him, not this year, but the year I won. And then my best teams, he's been my quarterback. I do like, and his dad played for the Cubs. I know you guys know I'm a big Cubs guy. So, but they get every call. It's so pathetic. Now we're kind of overtime. We were kind of scheduled for an hour, but guys, I do want to ask Clint this. Being sick, and I've been watching a lot of Netflix. I watched the Steve McNair Netflix. Have you seen that yet?
The Steve
McNair, like, it's the story about. So I love Steve McNair.
Oh yeah, man, he
was a Raven, but I remember him as a Titan, and Ravens and Titans had some battles, man. You talk about Ray Lewis and those guys, like it's like those games where they would end and you'd be like, man, this guy's a badass. Like, you won the game, but if you lost, you'd be pulling for those guys, right? I watched the Netflix. Come on, man. on his murder, man. He got murdered by this girl he was from Dave and Buster's, and it was like, God, it was sucked, man. Like, just everything about it sucked. I love that guy.
Man, I was at the beach with like a family trip when that news broke. I couldn't believe it, man. I'd obviously followed him with the Titans, and that was when I was first starting to get into liking the Ravens. And granted, he wasn't that great for the Ravens. He was kind of on the other side of his peak. But man, that was a wild story. And you said this on Netflix, so I'm gonna have to check that
It's
out.
pretty good. Yeah, you need to check it out. It's like an hour, but it's just kind of the story behind it. Like basically, everybody kind of knows at this point, but he had a girlfriend. She was 21, and she worked at David Buster's, and she got a DUI, and he was in the car. And while she's getting like going through all the stuff, he had somebody come and pick him up and kind of left her and then kind of blew her off. And not a good idea.
Wow, you know what?
Tell you
As
that.
crazy as it sounds, I guess it
Didn't
was
work
just,
out good for him or anybody.
I never knew that. I always knew that he was killed by his girlfriend, but I did not know that that's kind of how that went down. So
Yeah. Man,
traffic stop led to it, huh?
Pretty girl too. No, well, she was mad because I think he tried to blow her off after the DUI. I think he was like, because he was married still, so he was probably like, "Hey, I don't need any of this heat." And
Oh yeah, actually that does make sense. Like once you realize, hey, Steve McNair was a part of a DUI, not the one driving, but he was a part of it, and that starts, news starts breaking with that, and you got a wife at home. Yeah, he probably was trying to stay out of Dodge.
yeah, so that sucked. But I've heard stories of it, but I didn't get a chance to watch. I just watched that. Being sick, slowed me down enough where I got to catch up on some shows, watched a lot of TV. So, well, look, anyway, guys, Clint, tell everybody what you got going on, covercrimson.com.
Same old, great conversations. Been working on, the reaching championship expectations, the title of this video. We talked about it a little bit at the beginning. Been working on some stuff with that. That's been fun. I think people are going to enjoy that. It's taken a while, but also going to be, starting to look forward a little bit and doing some position previews. Now, granted, I'll do a little bit at a time, but I also have decided that I'm going to do a roster kind of ranking. I was debating top 25 entire roster, but just, I'll probably do about 4 or 5 at a time and just work my way down, leading up to spring practice. And then we'll touch on every player, every scholarship player on the roster. We're going to touch on them. It's probably not going to be like a ton of information, but I will go through. I'll watch high school highlights again. If they're a young player, I'll watch Bama, film if they've got it. I'll try to do some research, and I'll try to do a little write up on every single player. I think it'll be a great, piece of information where if you're trying to get to know players and everything else, it'll give you a pretty good background on them and kind of just my current thoughts and where I think they kind of fit in. So I think that's going to be fun. So be on the lookout for that.
Guys, thanks for hanging out with us. Again, like and subscribe. Give us a thumbs up. Thank you for hanging out with us here at Cover Crimson. We're going to, look for the live shows. We're going to start doing these a couple times a week, depending on our schedules. But we appreciate you guys so much. We're brought to you by mybookie.ag. Promo code next round to double your initial deposit. But they keep us in business. So you guys supporting them, having a little bit of fun over there helps us out a lot too. And covercrimson.com. So for Clint Lamb, I'm Mick Gillispie. It was a lot of fun. Roll Tide. Talk. I thought